Welcome to the very first episode of Just Ask Cher live Q&A. And I know I've done a Ask Me Anything episode before, but this is the first time I've actually overproduced one. Because you know, me, I am the queen of doing too much. And that's what I'm doing today. So thank you so much for joining me. I am really excited about this episode because I'm trying to bring the elements of my typical Just Ask Share, but also do something new. So it's not, all the bells and whistles, but I'm doing the thing to do the thing. And what I have done is I've been speaking a lot. And if you watch the video to find out about this episode, you know that it's been a lot. So, one of the things I get when I speak, of course, are questions and questions that need answering. And so I've been gathering questions from the different places that I've been speaking over January, and I have pulled them together. And they kind of group in these five groupings right here. So we're going to be talking about brands in transition. We're going to be talking about how you show up and how some people get intimidated by your personal brand and what should you do. We're going to be talking about your brand and theirs. And by theirs, I mean company brands. How does your brand work with the company brand? What are some of the things that you should be doing in order to collaborate with your company and build your brand alongside what you do at work and all that good stuff? And then, of course, we're going to have is this okay? Can I do this kind of questions? And it wouldn't be a Just Ask Share if I wasn't talking about Tap That App, or in this in this episode, we're going to do a tech check. So we've got some questions around the technology that I use to showcase what's going on. So we've got some people out there in the audience. I got Dan Saturday at 6:30 a.m. After the show, Dan, I'm going to send you a coffee. I actually am going to do it. And then I've got Althea. Good morning, Althea. Thank you so much for joining. I have Kevin D. Turner, of course. Keep rocking. Good morning, Cher Jones. I appreciate you. And Kevin D. Turner, if you ever want to know what's going on with LinkedIn, he's an amazing LinkedIn trainer, knows his stuff. But if you want to know that changes as it happens, as things are going on in LinkedIn, Kevin is my guy. He is absolutely showing me what's up, and I learned so much from him. And of course, my second half remix, Steve Worthy. Yes, good morning. Let's go. And I'm seeing some new friends, some old friends. And Ilya, hello, are you? Lovely to see you on a Saturday morning too, my friend. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. And I'm hoping guys, I want to check my comments. My usual, I check my phone, but I got so much going on. I got a lot going on. So I'll be checking in, and I see Karen. Karen, guess what? Remember, I promised that I'd be answering your question. Your question is coming off the top. So we're going to be talking about brand in transition. And of course, Kevin's saying, you rock, Cher Jones. I appreciate that more than you know. So the cool thing is, and let's see, wow, Minerva, hello, welcome from New Jersey. Well, we're in Toronto. I have a guest who is on the show. I have two guests who are on the show, and they'll be joining me to ask questions. And then I also have a video as well. So Karen says, yes, I do remember. So let me introduce to you guys my guests so that they can join me live on the screen. Again, this is right now the queen of doing too much. So I got to get rid of some of the stuff so I can show people properly, show off my peeps. And hold on. This is life in the fast lane. So let me get to the chat. There's so many options here. And so yes, I got to hide that. And Mitra also says, good morning, Cher, and hello to everyone. So thank you guys once again for joining me. So we are going to introduce my two guests. And first of all, Ashima, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And if you could just introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ashima. I'm based in Delhi, in India. And I'm glad to be part of this conversation with Cher today and looking forward to getting some answers from her. I have more than 20 years of work experience in different companies and in different profiles. But yeah, I'm really excited for our discussion today.
Ashma, it's going to be awesome. And next up, I have Anthony. Anthony, what's up, my
What's
OG?
up? Hi, everyone. Anthony from Toronto. Cher and I go way back.
Wait,
So I had some questions that were really burning in me, and I'm a 20-year veteran in the tech industry. Have gone through many different career transitions, and my most current career transition that's going to happen. This is why I'm here. So stay tuned to find out.
I
Yeah.
love it. I'm actually really excited about this. And so, yes, friends, first we are going to be talking about brands in transition. Yes. And both of my guests actually have questions with regards to their brand in transition. But I also got questions, and let me pull them up for you guys. I got questions from Karen Lewis. How much of myself do I share publicly while starting a new coaching business and consulting business? So, Anthony, this is right up your alley as well. It's going to be in line with the answer that I gave to you. And the other question that I got are, what are some tips for creating a strong personal brand for someone who is transitioning into a new career field and has a job gap? And I know as well, Ashima, you have a friend who also has some questions around this. So we are going to get this party started. So let me get rid of that for a second. And welcome, Anthony. And hold on, I've got so many things going on here. All right, all right, all right, all right. So, Anthony, you're up first. I want you to talk to me a little bit about what's going on with your
Okay.
situation.
So, um, for those of you who do know me, you've known that I have transitioned in my career so many times. I went from engineering into cloud, into being a trainer, and then eventually I became a team coach. And now I'm looking to make another transition. The the problems that I'm having is that whenever I've done these career transitions, I've basically built up a whole new audience. And because of this, it's taken a lot of time to build. It usually takes 5 to 6 months
Mhm.
to get that that community that you're looking for, your customer, the people that you're speaking to. And my one of my transitions into a cloud trainer was one that happened over COVID, and I was running my own business. So I was selling straight from LinkedIn. I was having great turnover. I was having great follow through. The problem is it took me a while to build that audience, to build that pipeline, if you will. And so now moving into another side of a different business, I want to see where can I be the most efficient so that way I can launch my business and not have that big gap in the beginning for me to build a community. What can I do ahead of time? And again, how do I make it easy on myself?
Okay, so when you think about what your biggest challenge is, it's sounds like it's all about transitioning that side of your
Yeah.
brand and bringing the community that is relevant, because there are going to be people who kind of cross over. It's not the same community, and it's
Yes.
not the same buyer. And I think that's the challenge is is finding opportunities for your community to see themselves or get interested in what you're doing, and at the same time showcasing the past knowledge, that the information that you carry with you, not even from just this transition, from the transition before, all these things that make you you.
Yeah.
And so there's two things that I think about when I think about this transition for you, and a lot of it's going to come down to content and knowledge sharing, as well as building up building up building up the credibility in this new space, right? And it's that social proof. And in this day of AI, what we have to battle is a lot of people can look like an expert really easily.
Totally.
So it's yo, I got my blog post. I got 10 blog posts actually, if the right prompt. You know what I mean? So you can so what you need to do to ramp up quickly, especially as you transition your brand, is immediately showcase what you know. And show how you can apply it. So I've been talking a little bit about this when I am on other shows, and when you're on lives, when you have the opportunity to speak or to be on video where you can really showcase and demonstrate your expertise, and you can show also how you can apply your expertise in real time to situations, it immediately builds up that trust that you actually know what you're talking about. Right. And as you're introducing your thought leadership in new ways, and you have to think about how does your old experience inform what you do now? Because that's actually going to differentiate you from others who have gone about it in a different path.
Right.
So being able to merge those two together are so important. And when you think about capacity for yourself, what does that look like from a content perspective? What are you thinking about so that you can demonstrate this expertise, demonstrate the bridge between what you know and how it informs what you're doing now? What content are you thinking about?
Oh, that's a direct question.
Direct question, just for you.
So to give you a little bit more context, I'm merging from a team coach to public speaking. And
Okay.
What's happened over the past 6 months is I've discovered my purpose, and I want to live out my purpose. In order to do that, I've decided to take on the career of a public speaker, along with doing workshops that complement the speaking engagements,
Mhm.
and some coaching that goes along with it. So for me, my subject matter is happiness. So
Okay.
happiness in the workplace. And I have been talking about this for the past, I would say, 3 months, 4 months, and
Right.
some of my community have already coined me as, the guy who always brings happiness, the guy
Right.
who's always showing up as happy. And that's what I wanted for my brand. Now the question is to get it from a state of just showing up that way to being a thought leader in my industry.
Right. So, I mean, when you lay it out on that level, I don't think the transition is that hard because one, I don't know very many people who don't want to be happy and to find happiness in the
Me too.
workplace, right? So that transition
Yes.
is not hard. The transition, being able to draw on your experience in the technology industry and to quickly be able to bring relevant information and relevant experiences directly from the technology industry and the transformation that happiness has created among teams, among relationships, and then strategies that you've had to use to create transformation. And that then follows into this is just going into speaking and training is a natural progression for a lot of experts, especially when you can apply a methodology. Have you developed a methodology? Are you
I have.
sharing that out? So it's really about proving through story,
Mhm.
proving through micro content that shows little things that can make a big difference in how you show up and how teams show up happier, and having those proof points, those stories, the way that you apply it through content. And what I'm now recognizing is that long format content, so podcasts,
Yeah.
longer interviews where people can really truly get into your thought leadership,
Mhm.
I'm finding for me and what's moving the dial for me are much more effective.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
I'm realizing, so we spent a lot of time in Clubhouse, and
We did.
right? And one of the things that I've been experimenting with, and this is actually evolving how I'm developing a podcast, which is going to launch at the end of the month, by the way. And thank you. And I've been leveraging LinkedIn audio
Mhm.
and turning my recordings that worked well for me. So I'm basically recording my podcast in front of a live studio audience, right? A live LinkedIn audience.
Yeah.
And I'm not using the Q&A or anything like that. It's just me performing, and then I open it up after for Q&A, but that part's not part of the podcast. But that might be a way where you can double up community,
Mm.
interaction, engagement, build trust, because what we need to do is ground happiness in methodology,
Yes.
happiness in example, happiness in experience, and happiness in results.
Right.
So that is your content space, and then speaking to your existing audience, they become your referral partners,
You know,
right?
I'm gonna be,
So
watching this over and taking notes, right?
I'm glad to hear that. And I see that also. So Rose wants to become a paid speaker as well, and you're already doing that regular. And she has a regular LinkedIn audio event, usually on Saturdays.
Oh, that's awesome.
So she's building up the. You got to put your reps in, right?
Yes.
And you've got to look for those opportunities. So that's what you want to do is look for, again, those experiences. Go back in this session and really look for that, and look at how you're transitioning your experience so that you become relevant to them in a different way, and you're grounded in what they know, and they become your first referral partners. So maybe what you may want to do is really focus on happiness within the technology industry and sector,
Yeah.
because those are your people,
Yes, that's
right? And they
exactly what I
are
was
your
thinking.
referral partners.
Thank you for affirming that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. And a lot of the happiness experts that are out there, they've all done these great they built these great careers built on research papers, built
Right,
on things like that. I don't have any research papers, but what I do have is 20 years in the trenches with
right,
people,
right.
understanding their unhappiness to bring them to a place of happiness.
And then you have methodologies that you've practiced over the 20 years,
Yeah.
because in order to have successful teams, you have to have a happiness quotient to it,
Yes.
right? Where people are
Absolutely.
feeling great. And so that then helps you've taken the research. It's not that you've ignored the people who've created the research. You've applied the research, and you have developed,
Yes.
and specifically within an industry. So start local and then build out, because that's your thing. You can speak to how people feel, and there's so much. Technology is such a huge pool anyway, that you're not losing out, right? So
Yes.
that's something that I think you will do fantastic at. I have a few people in the audience saying that you are going to do great. They're
Thank
cheering
you so
you
much.
on. They're cheering you on. And please refrain to professional speaker, as Cher knows, when you are getting paid to do it in public, which is anyone that speaks. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, when I think of professional speaking, it's funny. I worked most recently with a speaking coach to develop another signature talk. And the one thing that she talked to me about was making sure that you recognize that everything is a platform. Everything is a stage. This is a stage right now. You create stages, and you put the reps in, and you become more professional. You become better at your craft. You do what you do, and then you continue to evolve. So you're already out there.
Yes.
And I love it. So I hope that was helpful.
It was.
I'm going to also address, so I'm going to put you down, or I'm going to put you in the background for now.
Okay.
I'm going to come to Ashma in just a second, but I wanted to take a look at this. So, how much do I share myself publicly while I'm starting my new coaching and consulting business? So, this is an interesting transition because this is while still in your role. And one of the things that when I was looking at your profile, Karen, and I know what you do, and I know the impact that you make as a technology executive, what you have to, it's similar to Anthony in the sense that what you're going to have to do is really start focusing in on your experience as an executive and creating content that gets into your coaching business. And because you have a very clear understanding of that corporate world, and you have to correlate that back to the clients that you are willing that is your ideal client. What experiences? So is it coaching in the is it career coaching? Is it life development coaching? Is it feeling it really depends on where you're going, but either way, you have a position that you got to, and you have the skills that you are now able to, as far as an executive and a leader, you've been coaching and mentoring and sponsoring and championing others, and now it's about showcasing how that experience and that perspective, that life perspective, will impact and lead and guide your clients. So it's about reframing that. And then, so how much do you share about what you're doing publicly? It's one of those things where I find that it's a little harder when you haven't been actively sharing and showing up for your company, right? Because you might have a little bit of a push pull around what you're putting out there. And also, it also depends on what the company feels, how your company is about the policies they may have in place around, having a second opportunity. I saw that you announced it, and I saw that there's a lot of fanfare around it. So I don't think that's an issue, which is great. But I always recommend people make sure that it aligns with the policy. The next thing that I would say is you've got to decide how you want to show up, and how much of it you're going to share. So it's more of a level that you're comfortable with, because I have this common saying where I say respect the paycheck. And so what that means is understanding the policy, understanding the culture of the company that you're working with, and you can start to transition your brand so that it reflects your work as an executive, and it also reflects your work as a coach. And so that might be creating content that draws parallels to your two worlds, making sure that your bio clearly explains, especially if it's a respect the paycheck situation, that this is your 9 to 5 and this is your 5 to 9. So those are things that you have to consider when you are putting yourselves out there, and understanding the culture of the company, understanding how much is okay to share, but then start merging the two worlds by seeing how one informs the other. Because as a leader, you're constantly coaching, mentoring, training, as I mentioned. And so how does that impact the rest of your life? And it's a whole strategy, because it's a throttle, it's a push pull throttle, but it's definitely something that there are so many other answers or questions that require answers to give you a full strategy. But what I can do is tell you to start integrating the two lives that you have into one, and seeing how they interplay, and creating content around that. So I hope that helps. Okay, so the next question, I'm going to bring Ashma up with me. And Ashma, tell me, so let's go into, I know that you mentioned that when we were off camera, that there's someone close to you, and they currently are wondering what to do with the gaps. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. Before I start with that, I just want to give you a little background about myself. So, I am a very, very passionate women leader, and I like to empower, mentor, coach women as much as I can, whatever is possible. I'm not like not a professional right now in that field, but at a personal level, I try and do as much as I can. And also to set some context when it comes to India as a country, there is a huge gender gap in terms of the workforce that we have. So we, as it is, have less number of women working compared to the male population. And women in general tend to take a lot of sabbaticals, or they have career gaps, so whenever there's a life event, like they get married or they are having a kid, they will have a career gap. So this is a very, very common issue that we see, especially in India, and especially with women as a gender. Now, this person that I wanted to talk to you about is a very, very close friend of mine, and she got laid off recently, and this was completely unexpected. She wasn't even prepared for it. And now the situation is that obviously she is very, very demotivated. Her confidence is impacted, but at the same time, I feel that her personal brand is getting impacted now. So she actually reached out to ask me that, how she can ensure that her personal brand is not impacted, because in a way, when you get laid off, especially in India, I don't know about other countries, but you are kind of looked down upon, right? So people don't really look up to you in a good way, so to say. So, and as it is, and then you're a woman, you already know that you do not get jobs that easily, and when you got one, you got laid off. And so in a way, it's impacting you a lot, personally, emotionally, mentally, and impacting your personal brand. So my question was that in a situation like this, how do you think we can manage our personal brand, and what are some of the strategies that we could put in use to make sure that it is not getting impacted, in fact you're kind of maybe building upon it or strengthening it further?
So, one of the things that I see immediately is starting to build your own thought leadership, because now we're leaning from credibility from association of a role, an association of a position with a company, to talking about your expertise, so that anyone who's in this situation, especially one where there is a level of judgment, there is a level of well, what that, again, judgment, I think, is the best word to deal with. When you start to put out thought leadership in what you know and what you want to be known for, the distraction, or the diversion now becomes, wow, I didn't know you know that. I didn't know you had experience in that area. I didn't know that you were such an expert. So now what we've done is we've changed the game as far as perceptions, because what we have to leverage here is the expectation effect. And this is something huge when it comes to personal branding. This is more in the neuroscience thing, is that what we put out there, how we position ourselves, sets the expectation of
Mm.
what we think that person can do, what we think they know, what they think they will be like to work with. So what anyone can do in this situation is start to highlight everything that's relevant to where you want to go next. Don't talk about the stuff you don't want. And that's the one thing that I see a lot of people is they're talking about, they're creating distractions from what's awesome about you. And so we have to recognize that as we are creating the content that we want to create conversations about, be mindful of what you're putting out there and change the game. Because then, as your friends out there and they're looking, anyone who's looking, when they are meeting with people, that's what they're being met with, is that content. When someone's looking them up, oh wow, you're really intelligent in this area. You know a lot about this area. You're forecasting trends. You would be valuable. So I think it's just about changing the focus and not leaning into the fact that there is a lapse in the career, or a gap in the career. And I think we're much more, and I know culturally there's definitely a shame. There's gonna be some differences from North American culture to Indian culture, but with COVID, with everything that's happened, with talks of recession, people being laid off, there's more of a tolerance and empathy around that than ever before, even despite the thousands of miles we are away from each other. And so I think what now has to happen, if anybody's in that position, is really lean into their strengths, really showcase um, their thought leadership, their expertise through content, and also building those relationships that that person can then advocate for you. They can champion you because, one, I think it's so important that people master their message. And so what I mean by that, anything that you're doing with your personal branding, whether you're creating content, whether you're networking, it is all rooted in knowing what your message is and being able to effectively articulate your value. And when you can do that, and you can do it in such a way that everybody gets it. There's no confusion. There's complete clarity on what you do and how you serve. And there's complete confidence in your value based off of what you lean into it, as far as experience is concerned, to serve. You have to work on that message. And everybody, whether you're employed or not, we all have to work on our ability to communicate our value effectively. So that would be first. Because when people, it's our job to take charge of our own success. And we, in order to do that, exactly, in order to do that, we have to make sure that we are giving people the language to advocate for us, right? Because no one's going to start talking about you till you start talking about you. No one knows how to describe you if you don't know how to describe you. And then the followed by that is your content then creates conversation, and it's also proof of what you know, what you've done, and what you can do. And so that's why this is a nice 1-2 punch. And then as you connect with people who can create or open doors for you, create opportunities for you, create introductions for you, now they have something to talk about and they have your language to advocate for you. So for anybody right now who is in transition, you have to work on your message. You have to create conversations that you want to talk about with what you put out there. And then you have to make sure that you are actively having relationships with people who can help you get to that next level. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, such great tips, Cher, and I'm sure this is going to help my colleague and a lot of other people who are
For
tuned in
sure.
right now. Really helpful. Thank you.
Amazing. And then, so this is just like, what are some tips about creating a strong personal brand for someone who's transitioning into a new career field and has a job gap? So to touch on Nicole's question, which she's going into a different career field. So what it actually connects with what Anthony was talking about, what Anthony, I'm bringing you up, Anthony, so you, just so you know, you're hot. Um, we have to recognize that the transferable, those skills, that information, that experience, what you have to do is, how does that experience inform where you're going? And then to wrap this all up with a bow, we talk about working on your messaging so people now can clearly articulate what you do and how you serve. You have to create the conversations and shift the direction of where you're going and where you want people to associate with your brand by putting content out there that is relevant to where you're going and showcases where you've been and how you use that where you've been experience to inform what you do now. And that makes your brand so personable. Personal because no one else has your exact way. No one else has your perspective. And then being able to articulate that perspective in a way that your audience is going to resonate with is amazing. And then to cover the job gaps is really about focusing on what you know and not worrying about the gap, and creating those relationships that can open the doors because they have the messaging, they have the proof, they feel confident about you, and then everybody's happy. So what do you guys think? Yep, works for you? All right. And I love it. Okay. So I am going to put you guys back down into the green room. You'll be watching. And then we are going to move on to the next segment. So before we do that, I'm going to jump back into the careers and the comments. And Laura, I got your question coming up. It's in queue. So you left me a question when I was with the women Women of Influence Plus when I did a LinkedIn Live. So I have that question coming up. So I'll have you know. And I think I got this one. You have to ask yourself why you're sharing this. What is the ultimate purpose? Is it connection or attention? Absolutely. And Karen says, this makes sense. Leverage the existing to maximize the future. Yes. All right. This is good. And let me see over here, Kevin, incorporate the corporate into your brand, lowers red flags at work and makes us more attractive to other companies too. Amen to that. And that's why when I was talking to Karen, really, I find it easier to talk about other things when you respect the paycheck and actually talk about your company's brand too. And it just, you show up as a more, as someone who's advocating for your company. You are an employee advocate. So I think it's really important. And great to see you, Heather. I got your question coming up later in the show. And Yvonne says, great advice. Thank you so much. And let's see. She also says, totally agree, Cher. Owning your own career is great. It is absolutely key. And let me go into, again, the queen of doing too much. So this is what we're talking about next. We touched on the brand in transition. Next, haters gonna hate, 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 right? They really are. And the interesting thing, what a lot of people are dealing with right now is they build their brand at work. The interesting thing here is that we see people that actually get jealous that you're working on your personal brand, which is really interesting, but it is common. It is so common. Sorry, guys, I was thirsty. It is so common that we have to now, I build it in with my strategies with my clients that I'm working with because you're doing, well, to them, you're doing the most because a lot of people are looking at you like, why do you have to do so much? Why are you out there all the time? She's always posting or he's always posting. And then they're also seeing you're always getting the opportunities. How did you get that? And there's a little bit of they're jealous of the performance. They're jealous of you doing too much. They don't want to be brought to that level. So the interesting thing that I've been telling a lot of people that they need to do is start including their brand strategy in their performance plans at work, which is a really interesting thing to consider. So one of the things that you need to do is actually start articulating your why. Why are you building your personal brand at work for work? And there are many different ways that you can think about it. One of the beautiful things about building your personal brand at work is it improves your performance. It helps you excel in your position because more people trust you. They understand what it is you do and how you serve. They're able to communicate that to somebody else. You're attracting people to your talent. So by building your brand, that is a great thing for those who have to meet to eat, meaning you got to meet people, you got to build relationships with people, whether it's internal or external, you got to build trust. Your brand can help you do that. And then if you are in charge or have to attract talent to your team, to your organization, or work with vendors and you're trying to elevate that game, your brand can support you. There's so many different ways. So when you're able to articulate what it is your brand is doing in your role, why it is helpful for you to do what you do, and actually include it in your performance planner, that makes a lot of sense. So I want to include this question. So what and how do you manage a brand when it intimidates others? So right to this is first take care of yourself, right? Because you have to recognize that sometimes they're going to hate no matter what, right? And it's oftentimes it's because they're looking at what you're doing and what they're not. And also, again, what I mentioned before is they're looking at what you're getting and what they're not. So, Ashma, I remember we were talking a little bit about this as well. So I'm going to bring you in so that we can have a discussion around this. So tell me what you've seen as you've been navigating the world as a leader, and how that's affected you as you've been building your brand.
Sure. So I have noticed this several times, and not noticed actually. I have experienced this, that when you have a strong personal brand, obviously there are a lot of advantages, right? Like you rightly called out, people get attracted, you get more opportunities, you build trust, you are building good relationships. But at the same time, there is a set of population which is unhappy, which is jealous. They don't like you. So what I used to experience was that people would get intimidated. They will stop hanging out with me. They would not want to get on a project with me because they would feel that I'm going to overshadow their work, or I will take all the credit, and they will not be really appreciated for the work that they are putting in. There'll be small groups that'll get formed who are going to kind of spread negativity for you or against you. Telling the world that I did this, and she took the credit, or how come she's landing all the opportunities, and why is it that we are not getting this? So and also not just at a level where it's your colleagues or your teammates, or your team members who are doing this. Sometimes it is also the senior leaders who used to get intimidated. So there was a time when the senior leader would not let me take an opportunity that's coming up, or would not put me forward for a promotion, because they feel that they were insecure with my personal brand, or they thought that I can overtake what they are doing or become a threat to their job. And that kind of obviously impacted my career growth, right? Because they were not happy with my personal brand. So I would really like to know how you could handle that. And maybe, I don't know, I mean, you can't have everybody happy around you, but at
Right.
least tell them that this is what you are doing, and they could do the same thing for themselves. If they want to build their own brand, they could do that too, and not necessarily they have to get intimidated or think otherwise like they're doing currently.
100%. And the interesting thing there is an opportunity for you to, one, make sure you're including it in your performance plans. So you have it documented. So you can clearly say, well, this is why I'm doing it so that I can accomplish this and that. And then the other thing you mentioned it is around sharing the wealth. So sharing the fact that here's what's worked for me and helped me accelerate in my position. And that only, whenever you teach, it elevates your brand. And that's something that a lot of people need to recognize and share those opportunities. Um, Another great thing that you can do and that a lot of people can do is be very intentional about lifting up other brands. So lifting up your team, spotlighting somebody who you work with so that they can see that, because the thing is, branding is often done wrong or it's done poorly. There's a lot of poor marketers, whether they're in branding or not. There's a lot of people putting a lot of stuff. And half the times it's just because they don't know they're doing something wrong. So they think that I'm supposed to talk about this. I'm supposed to brag about all the things I've done so people know, so they'll hire me. And it's not that simple. It puts a lot of people off if it's not done in service. So if you
Mhm.
don't position your experience in service, if you don't position how you can help people, and then here's why you can trust me based off of my experience, that becomes an issue. Or if you do make it spotlight all about me without calling out team members. And so it's almost, I feel like that anybody that I've worked with and given this advice is they had to be extra intentional. And
Mhm.
once they started to do that, the tension from the other colleagues that they had to work with, it definitely decreased. There is also defensive branding that has to happen. So sometimes you will be in a position, and I've had many clients like this, where the person they report to has blocked them from talking to the person above them, even though they had a good
Oh yeah.
rapport. And you've seen that, and it's like, no, you have to come through me first, and then
True.
I will
True.
take it up. So what you can do in that sort of situation, the first is, you know, where I've counseled is really making sure that you do the best to see how you can repair that relationship so that you can increase their level of security around you and let them know, how can I support you? How can I help you grow in your job? Literally, what can I do to make you look good? Kind of conversations that you have to have that person to try to put them to ease. That doesn't mean it's always going to work. The next thing that you can do is create. So I mentioned it before, content creates conversations. You create the conversations that through content that will attract the conversations you want to have. And my whole theory on branding is it is hard to ignore awesome, right? When you put something out there that is awesome, it is like it is like a dog whistle to anybody who's attracted to that kind of awesome. We just can't help but notice and share it. And you will bring the conversations to you. You will bring that relationship to you. And that whole visibility play. So going back to the first strategy around shouting out your colleagues, shouting out people who are doing great work. So it's not just about, I'm always talking about me. These are strategic visibility strategies that these are visibility strategies that can truly elevate your presence in any company or in the industry and also attract those hidden opportunities. So it's definitely a dicey game. There are always people going to be jealous, but if you do those things to sort of walk that fine line, it does certainly help. So I hope that was helpful to you as well.
Absolutely. It helps. Great advice, Cher. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. And I'm just going to bring Anthony in for a second because I can't help it. Anthony, have you ever noticed when someone's been hating on your brand? Because you've been out
Yep.
there, right?
Yes.
How have you seen yourself navigate that?
Well, first of all, whenever I join a new organization, I make it very clear I am very active on LinkedIn. And if there's anything that's going to impact me posting anything on LinkedIn about myself and my personal brand, I want it to be clear. So I create that boundary, first of all. Secondly, I have had people who have been very negative about it. And what I do in turn is say, how can I help your presence on LinkedIn? I will be more than
Yes,
happy to sit with you for an hour or two. So that way you can now become an expert in your field, an
exactly.
expert in what it is that you do. And some people have taken me up on it. Most have not,
Yep.
naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I,
But
Mm-hmm.
that's a great strategy, Anthony.
yeah, but you kill them with kindness because you want to show them that, hey, I want you to be part of my community
Right.
and vice versa. So
Right.
let's do this together, right?
Right.
Because there's so many people on LinkedIn now. But the thing is, who is helping one another? And you want to elevate others because that creates the reciprocal nature of humans.
Yeah.
You help somebody else and naturally they want to help you. So it's a win-win for everyone. And especially when you show up at work and people are like, "Hey, Anthony, I saw your post on LinkedIn." And I get that
That
a
part.
lot. I get that a lot.
Yes.
I even had one person that I had the blessing to work with. She came in and she's like, "You're Anthony from LinkedIn. I am so happy that I get to work with you."
Mm-hmm.
And I was taken back. I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize that I was having that type of impact." But when I start to realize that, then in turn I start to give back. I start to tell other people, "Hey, you know what? You can do exactly what I'm doing on LinkedIn. Let me help you."
Yeah. And then when you even take it a step further and say, hey, I'm going to do lunch and learn for anybody who wants to learn,
Yes,
you elevate your visibility and you're there for
totally.
everybody. So I love this advice, guys. Thank you so much. I'll probably bring you back later on in the show. I wanted to let you guys know about something. As I mentioned before, my podcast, Your Brand at Work, is coming soon. And if you head over to yourbrandatwork.com, you can get on the list. So you are one of the first to know. I want to let you know as well that I will be giving prizes to my first time listeners, right? So, of this brand new podcast, it should be out at the end of the month. I am hopefully speaking at an event called PodCamp. I have applied to speak. We'll see if I'm speaking, and it's all about creators who want to build their brand at work for work and leverage their creator skills, showcase their creator skills. So I'm on the list to, it's at least my topic has been approved, and we'll see what's up, but I am excited about that. So now my next topic, let's get back into topics here. And my next topic is all about your brand, their business. And it is serious. And so we've kind of touched that right now as far as, and actually, before I jump off, Anthony, do not go without me saying goodbye to you. Hold on. I got a little note in the back. Hold on. Let me bring you up here. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me on the show. I really appreciate you joining with your questions and your insights as well. So thank you for joining me. And for everybody out there, please go check out Anthony. He's a wonderful guy
Thank you so
and
much.
so filled with knowledge and so happy.
Always so happy.
Always
Have
so
a
happy.
fantastic day, Cher, on purpose.
On purpose. That's right. So thank you so much. And Ashma, I figured you wanted to say bye to Anthony too. So I figured, hey, everybody's saying bye. So thank you so much.
Nice to
All
meet
right.
you.
So,
Bye.
all right. So, okay. So back to your brand, their business. All right. So I have a question. And this is the question come up from Laura. How do employers benefit from employees working on their personal brands? Oh, boy, 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 do I love that question. And here's why I love this question so much. So typically what you'll hear is it will help increase talent attraction and retention. You'll hear that it is great for sales, obviously, and great for service because you can create content and take your customers through that entire journey. And as well, it is fantastic for culture, retention, sales, service, and thought leadership in general. But I would like to double click into where I believe that personal branding truly moves the dial. It does in all of that. It's so good for marketing. It's so good for sales. It's so good for talent attraction, of course. Those are like the three big ones right there. But my the way that I approach personal branding is at an individual level and as a company level is if you upgrade your brand, you will upgrade your life. And I truly believe that if you upgrade your personal brand at work for work, what you will do is you will create a better experience for yourself as an employee so that when they invest in their employees' personal brands, you will have a better experience as a team, as a company, as a whole. And let me explain why. Because when you build your personal brand at work for work, what you are doing in essence is you are creating the conditions for you to show up and do your best work where you're going to be respected and rewarded as an individual because people will respect what you do because they'll know what you do. And I think it's good for me to step back for a second and provide my personal definition of personal branding. So typically you'll hear this very common and very true definition that your personal brand is what people say about you when you leave the room or when you're not in the room. My definition of personal brand is a little bit deeper than that. It goes, your personal brand is the story people tell themselves about you based off of the vibe they get when they interact with any aspect of you and the expectations they have the first or the next time they're going to meet or to work with you. So it is the story, the vibe, and the expectations. So if you can set those conditions so that when you walk in a room, people already know what you do, how you can help them, and why they can trust you based off of your experience. Have already elevated the game. So what you are doing is creating a brand that can help you excel in your role. So when you're excelling in your role, that's great. When people are recognizing and trusting your ability to do something, that now also levels you up in that in their eyes. You're also able to attract more of what you want to do. So people are recognizing that you have these skills and these talents. And even in a conversation yesterday, a friend of mine was saying that her employer saw that she's live streaming, saw that she's putting content out there, saw that she's talking about AI. All of a sudden, she was tapped to be in a high profile proposal and bid for a big opportunity with her company. And if she wasn't doing it, they would never know. Because here's the thing, if you're not talking about you, no one's going to be talking about you because no one knows. So you've got to give them something to talk about by start talking about yourself. So that's one aspect of it. But then as you are building your brand, you are creating an environment in the company where people are excelling in their roles. It's supporting what they do. And then as well, it's supporting their growth within the company, because when people are recognized for their skills, and when people are rewarded for what they do, they usually tend to stick around a lot longer, which creates that retention. And when people know how to brand themselves well and they are advocating for the company, now what you have is this performance. And so accelerated performance. You also have personal ownership over their own success, because if they can correlate how their brand can support them and excel in their role, and they actually do the steps, take the steps to build their brand, that then creates a better opportunity for them. So yes, it helps with marketing, sales, retention. But when people are doing well at work, they're happier at home. So that ripple effect. They are happier with their employees that they work with because they feel more respected. Their input is being requested. People understand what it is they do and how they serve. They're operating more into their zone of genius, finding their strengths and pushing it out there. And so the ripple effect is huge. And we recognize that happier employees, as Anthony would mention earlier, are better performing employees. And then the ripple effect goes on at home. So that's what I have found, and that's what I believe. And here, I have found that whenever you have leaders or coworkers feeling intimidated, see how you can learn from them. Okay, so this is earlier, yes. And collaboration is so important to building a relationship. And then, so I also want to bring in, I have another interesting mention. And before I do that, let me just tell you one thing. I am a speaker for hire as well. So my new talk, Upgrade Your Brand, Change Your Life, is a keynote presentation where I'm teaching people how to build their personal brands at work for work. And this is something that if you are looking for your next keynote speaker to introduce the concept of building their personal brand at work for work, send me a DM over on LinkedIn and we can have a discussion around how I can help your employees build their brands, because this is something that there are so many opportunities. So definitely, I wanted to show you guys this. I put a little extra effort into this. So yeah, book me now. All right. So that was a little extra effort to pop out onto the screen, but back over to me. And so that is something that I want you guys to think about. But now I have another question. This is a little bit of a contrast when it comes to this question. So let me bring it back up for you so you can book me now. And then let's ask this question. Sorry, I need another drink. Should companies start talking about this, meaning personal branding, and start building frameworks around the do's and the don'ts? And I would say, and actually, Sylvia provided more context. So what she was talking about, she's like, I think that personal branding must approach from both sides, employees and employers, because most of the time employers want you to be them. put their LinkedIn banner up, talk about the company only, etc. I think we must start having conversations around it because sometimes it is quite suffocating. Just because I work for a company, it doesn't mean I have to adopt the identity. The moment they tell me to put the LinkedIn banner, I'm out. That's an intrusion of everything. They enter my soul. And the interesting thing is a lot of people feel that it has to be a true understanding and a true collaborative partnership around working and building your personal brand for a company, understanding why leveraging. So for example, if you're in a sales position or if you are actively developing business or recruiting for a company, leveraging the company banner could actually significantly increase your credibility when you're reaching out. That trust factor goes way, way up. And so that might be something, but that really comes around the education. It should not be forced on you. Sometimes when I've worked with leaders who want to sort of represent the company, but not completely be like tattooed, I work for this company. What we've done is we try to find bridging techniques where it's like when you see this image, you can see how it correlates to the company, but they're not using any of the logos. So that's another way you can get around it. And when you start to build your brand, to excel in your role, that's where those questions start to come to mind. Do I have to use the company's banner? Does it make sense? Is it going to help me? Does it serve me? So apparently I have a blurry screen. I know I've been having some issues with Restream. I'm going to have to try another provider. Thank you for letting me know. It's me moving around too much maybe. But the next thing I want you guys to think about is, again, that education piece around companies saying, okay, do we actually have to force our employees? And I don't think you can at the end of the day. Not, I don't think you can. You can't. This is your personal space. Will that create waves if they're trying to force you? Absolutely. And that's something that you have to recognize going into company culture. Does it align with you? And so one thing that I want to, speaking of company culture and speaking of whether this is something that you want to be a part of as you're doing your research to join a company, work with a company, or even thinking about how you want to work with a company. I do have on LinkedIn Learning, it's all about leveraging your in-house creators to create content and how to work with them and in this program, which I will make sure I share a link in the replay, this program also talks about the considerations around guidelines and policies and things that you need to consider when you're partnering with your internal in-house creators to create awesome content. All right, so I have another question, and this question is actually a video, and it comes from Bobby Umar. And so I'm going to play that, and we will get into his question.
Hey, Cher, long-time listener, first-time question asker. I love your stuff. Here's my question. So if you have a personal brand and you're working on your personal brand and you figure out that your brand is not aligned with the values of your organization, what do you do? Do you leave? Do you transition out slowly? Do you try to align with the company? Do you try to change yourself? What exactly would you do? Because I think that your personal brand at work is an important piece. But if it's something that doesn't align with the company and the mission they're on, then how do we resolve that issue? That's my question. Hope you enjoy it. Bye.
Bye. Hi, Bobby. I love this question for many reasons. So one of the things that I think most people have to do is, because it's so easy to say, well, just find another job. And ideally, if you hate where you are, it doesn't feel like you should be there. Yes, you should actively be looking to improve where you spend most of your time. But sometimes it's easier said than done, depending on what your current needs are in that situation. The one thing that I would start to do is I would work on what are the strengths that align with what you do in your work. So, and I know that you're asking from a client's perspective. I know you have lots of clients and whatnot that may have this question. So that's when you really have to start to see, where do we align at all, right? And it's usually in your ability to do your job, your knowledge, and your expertise. And if you ground your brand in that, then even though if you culturally don't align, you can focus on how you add to that organization through your experience, why you're there, why you can be trusted to do what you do. So it's really about pulling back on you know aligning with the company, or maybe even advocating for the company. That's if you can't genuinely advocate for the company, you don't have to share content that your company produces or anything like that. But what you can do is show up as an awesome person who is currently employed to do this job, and show up with those skills and expertise, and put that and position that in your messaging as far as what you do and who you help. And then so it takes it's literally, I'm turning my attention to how I serve, not necessarily the company culture. And then that will allow you to not only do and excel in your role in that sense, but also be attractive to any other employer who looks at those skills and expertise. So hopefully that helps. And let's look at what I got going on here. And your brand in there. So that's where you are at that point right now. And guys, if you wanted to also, let me get rid of that, connect with Bobby. This is Bobby's profile. So definitely go over there and check out Bobby. He's doing some great work in the speaking space, and absolutely supporting people who are wanting to do a TED Talk. He's done so many that he's declined more than he's done. It's crazy. So that is awesome. So I would like you to also, just again, as you're thinking about the answers to these questions, you definitely want to step into your strengths, step into what you love to do, and create your brand around that. So my next question in the your brand and theirs is, this is the last one in this session. And how do we counter an employee's obsession of branding? This is such a great question, and it happens more than you think. So you've got employees that are totally brand happy. They can't help themselves. They're posting a lot. And I would say more than anything, that's an education piece. I alluded to it earlier around saying that a lot of people are they didn't go to school for marketing. They're kind of seeing what they see out there, and they're just saying, oh, they do that. Or they're following the advice of someone who is a marketer, right? And they have to market themselves in a different way than the average employee, but that's what they're seeing. They're seeing this person who sells services for a living, for example, right? And so that type of person, including myself, we have to post more content than the average bear at work, right? So what they're seeing is that, oh, do I have to post 4 times a day? Do I have to do all this content? No. Depending on what your goals are, I would say most professionals and leaders, personal branding isn't about spending the majority of your efforts on LinkedIn. I would say it's a part of it, but there's so much more to do with your messaging, your relationships, your proof. So content, and not just content that you're going to put on the internet, content internally, your exchanges, all that stuff matters a lot more than building a presence on LinkedIn for most people. Unless you are building a thought leadership presence, that's a different conversation. But if you've never had training on that, how are you going to know? So oftentimes what I would suggest is that's a training issue. They have to understand, instead of just following the crowd and following what they've seen because that's what they've known, at least they're doing something, giving them context into why they need to build their brand at work, for work, helping them to understand how it can support what it is they do in their role, how it can support their growth as an employee, where it comes to building relationships, where it comes to attracting new opportunities. And once they have more of that information and more of those strategies that set them up for success, where they can own their opportunities, it changes everything. So that is what I would suggest. Is it's more on the training side. People, if they don't know, they don't know. So that's where I'll leave that. And Ashma, I wanted to bring you back up to see if you would like to add into that. Have you ever seen somebody who is over branding themselves? And yeah, have you seen that where they're just doing too much? They're doing the most and then too much.
Yeah, I have come across a couple of people, and sometimes, like you initially said, that you should know why you're doing this, right? What kind of brand are you trying to create, and what content are you going to put behind that? So sometimes I've seen people just posting randomly,
Right.
so one post is about subject A and the other post you see is about subject B, and it's anything and everything, very random. And they think that they are building a brand and they are getting attention, and they're making connections, but actually you kind of confuse your audience, right?
Mm,
Because you're like, we don't know what you're up to, right? We don't know what your message is. Sometimes you're talking about subject regarding, let's say, DEI, and other days you're talking about risk, or you're talking about a movie that you saw. So it's very random. Yeah, so I've definitely come across, and I don't think that leaves a good impression or is actually helping you build your personal brand. You definitely need to put a lot of thought and hard work to get where you want to, and have a good brand for yourself.
absolutely. And that's the thing. And people only know what they see. So it,
True.
that's where it comes down to the training. That's where it comes down to the context, and then going to into what you said, the strategy. What is it you want to accomplish, and how does your brand support that? So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to put you back in the green room for a second. And I have yet, we're going to go into, is this okay? Can I do this? So the first question I have is, this was a private DM. So you guys can send me private questions. You don't want your name all up on the LinkedIn streets. I'll keep your name private. So here's a question: if someone is employed to an organization, should one use their personal, and there's actually more context to this, especially if that CEO intends to move on someday. I've seen CEOs use the space to promote their own brand so that they have growth options, but are chided for doing so. And so, again, back to the question: if someone is employed to an organization, should one use their personal brand to support, to promote their organization? So the interesting thing with that, and let me just go full screen here. The interesting thing with that is, my answer is yes, you should be developing your brand. And I think that most people who are invested in their company, for as long as they're going to be there, it is a smart strategy to incorporate your company's brand into your brand. It is smart for you to talk about the company that you work for, especially as the leader, because the other piece around that is you're leading by example, especially now as people start to get more comfortable with leveraging their personal brands at work for work. We want to see leadership do it. So we want to see that leading by example. We want to see, oh, it's okay to talk about our wins and the things that are going on in the company. Oh, I see our CEO is sharing postings and sharing events, sharing, even if it's employee events. When we see that top down, you create a better opportunity for other people to start sharing as well. And it also gives you visibility. So whether you are at the company for a season, a reason, or a lifetime, while you're there, look for opportunities to elevate your brand through visibility by becoming an incredible advocate authentically. I'm not just saying just go out there and share stuff. Look for things that you're proud of your company, or you're proud of your team, or you're proud of what's going on in the industry and what you guys are doing in this space. Or it could be stuff that's internal, where there's opportunities where you're seeing how the company has supported employees, where they have grown employees, where they're creating opportunities to create closer relationships. So, you guys could be out there building homes, Habitat for the Humanity, and you could talk about those things. Or even if it's just celebrating somebody's tenure at a company, those things matter for as long as you're there. And they show what type of leader and what type of person you are on. So, one thing I want to do is before I jump into the next question, I just wanted to say bye to Ashma. I know that you are on your way out, so I want to make sure that I definitely, let's move that one out of the way. Too many tricks. There we go. Ashma, thank you so much for joining me. And I want to encourage everybody out there to also connect and connect with you as well. So thank you again for joining me. And I really appreciated all the insights, your questions, and so much more. So thanks again for joining me. Guys, if you're watching, we'll be wrapping up soon. But before I do that, I do want to say thank you.
Thanks, Cher. It was a pleasure being here today and loved every bit of it. Thank you so much for all your tips and advice. I look forward to using them and connecting with you again in future.
Thank you so much. All right. I appreciate that, and have a great evening, because it is like almost 10 o'clock in India right now?
9:15, yeah.
9:15. Okay. So it's
Okay.
pretty late.
Thank you.
Handle your stuff. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Yeah,
Bye.
thanks. Bye.
All right. So that's what you're looking at, is building your brand in the organization. And so we can have a wayfinder. We're almost done, guys. I had a lot of questions, like I said before. So the next thing that we're asking is this okay? So that's where we were at with the question. And I got one more question in this area, then we're going to tech. How much should you share about yourself personally out? And this is from John Lacey, who is a superstar live streamer. If you ever want to get more information on how to build your brand with live streaming, my friend John definitely is a rock star. He's helped me with some things that I do on live streaming. So I've learned a lot from him as well. So the one thing that I would suggest when it's like, how much should you share about yourself personally? I am of the fan of, well, one, everybody's different. So some people are more comfortable sharing a lot more than others. But if it's a matter of, okay, I want to start doing that, is pick your areas that you could talk about no matter what. I've talked about this before. It's my Easter egg strategy. You'll see Easter eggs behind me that give you insight into who I am as a person. My Easter eggs also come out in content. So I try to merge my passions with my knowledge. For example, if you go into my profile and look under documents, you'll see a document that I created, a graphic document that's all about 5 lyrics from classic hip hop songs that give us lessons about personal branding. So that's a way that you can start to bring in that professional, personal life and merge it all together. And maybe I've seen people talk about their kids really well and lessons that apply. So it's about finding the right mix and making sure that that's not all the personal, is not all you're talking about, because then I'm going to remember that and not your awesomeness in what you do. So that's my answer to that question. And then the next question is, how authentic can we be? I feel like I have to be selective with what we share. And so that's from So Accurate. We all have to be selective of what we share, because we are absolutely responsible for how we put ourselves out there. We are accountable. There is absolutely, in at least in the US, there's free speech, but that doesn't mean you're free from consequence. So those things are things where we have to recognize, if it's something more controversial, is that the hill I'm willing to die on? And sometimes it is, then go for it. Those are the choices. Those are intentional choices. But we do have to be mindful of what we talk about, and in relation to how we show up. We're seeing right now that, sharing different political beliefs can be like, we have this cancel culture. So if your brand is not on the activism level and you are not willing to risk it, don't. You don't have to. right? You can always send support in the DMs. You can let them know privately that you're okay if it comes to that. And then for yourself, you have to decide. I prefer personally to lean on, let me showcase my strengths and how I help people. Let me show insights on who I am that will allow people to lean in and connect with me. And I do curate how I show up. And that's what you're going to have to do. So I hope that helps. And we are moving into probably my favorite topic. I had to leave this for the end because, guys, you know what's up. If we're talking tech in the beginning, that the whole show would be about tech, right? The whole show would be about technology. So I left it to the end. But let me just, before we go ahead, I just have one thing I need to tell you. Warning. Some viewers may find the following segment triggers involuntary tech purchases. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, so that was my HBO. Viewer discretion is advised. And the first question that I have is from my friend Jihan. And she wanted to know, what tool did you use to edit and shoot the video for the short clip? So if you saw the short clip that was talking about this episode, what was it? What did I shoot on? Are you wondering? Are you wondering what I use? Well, I'm going to show you exactly what I use because I created something for that. All right. So what I use is a Sony ZV-E10 and a Sigma 16 millimeter lens. So that already is a level up. So you upgrade your camera, you'll upgrade how everything looks, right? The next thing that I did, but however, there are some really good webcams, right? So the Logitech Brio is one of my favorites. And I actually recorded in Zoom. So I'll record because it's just so easy. You open up Zoom, you record, but you record locally on your computer. So you don't want to download it from the internet because it loses quality. So after that, and I got that tip actually from Juma. So Juma Bannister is an incredible content creator, as many of you know him. And he talked about that about 2 years ago. And I was like, yeah, I need to record on Zoom. And then after I edit on Filmora, that is a cloud-based editing system. I find them easy to use and super fantastic. And so that's why I use Filmora by Wondershare. Then to get the closed captions, I used a program called ClipScribe. I believe you can do it in Filmora, but I already have this program, so it's just part of my workflow. A lot of other people like Opus Clips as well, so that is another one that you can consider. And I believe I have one more thing, and then. So if you clicked in, you could actually, I uploaded to a platform called Warm Welcome, along with taking that same video and uploaded to LinkedIn itself. But what I did was Warm Welcome is a really interesting tool because people to send you, although no one did. I got messages in the DMs on LinkedIn, and I got messages, voice notes as well. And but you can actually respond using Warm Welcome. So that was something. And I have one more question. So let me see before I go in there. When you are first starting out a post, where are the mindset shifts to keep in mind to help you keep posting and not quit? I'm going to get back to that one, Sri, in just a second. I shouldn't have clicked on that one, but because that's a really good question. But I want to get out of the tech, and then I'll end up and I'll close out on your question because I think that's an awesome question. And I see Harry's in the comments and Heather. And yes, saving the best topic for last. Thank you, Heather. And Steve Worthy says, love that warning. Yes, it is absolutely necessary. And Enrique says, hey, Cher Jones, great tips. Thank you very much. All right. So my final question is actually from Heather before I get into the questions in the comments. And I wanted to play your voice note, Heather, but I had trouble doing that, getting it up. So I'm going to have to paraphrase. That's why I use that. She loves the videos. She loves the video quality and the picture quality. And she said, what equipment do you use to record your videos? So I showed a little bit about it, but I wanted to dive deeper because I believe you have a Nikon D64 Nikon 6. Tell me what you have, Heather, I know it's a Nikon. And so I did some research on that as well. So the one thing that I wanted to tell you, again, I use the Sigma, and I use an ATEM Mini with my videos, so that it allows me to actually, is it messy back there? So I have a switcher, which Harry and I have been back and forth in the DMs about. And so that allows me, I have 2 cameras set up. So I know it's a little bit over the top. So first I'm showing you what I have, and then I'll show you my recommendations for you. So this switcher allows me to go from this camera 1 to camera 2, just like that. Press of a button and back to camera 1. All right, so that's the ATEM Mini. That allows me to do just that. Here we go. Team ATEM. There we go. And Heather says she has a D600. Yes. I was like, because Sony has an A6400, and I knew I was getting it wrong, but thank you. I knew it was in the 600 somewhere. All right. So I appreciate that. So I have the ATEM Mini, and then I have a Shure. So this is the Shure MV7 Rodecaster Duo. If you could hear the room sound, because I have a co-working space, and there's a rattle in the ceiling at all times. It's a great place. I don't know why. There's just a rattle in their HVAC system. And so the Rode did a really good job of eliminating any sounds. But so that's my kind of setup that I use. But here's what I'm going to tell you. What I want you to focus on is making sure that you have a good lens for your D600. I use the Sigma from my research. It doesn't work with the D600, but there's a lot of good recommendations for lenses. And the Sigma 16 millimeter lens, I get this like blurry background. That's kind of the vibe that I was going for. And that's what this lens does really well. And then up next, you're going to need a cam link. So I know, because we went back and forth a little bit on the DMs. And so a cam link, it'll allow you to effectively, what am I saying? It will allow you to effectively live stream with your camera. And you'll also need the HDMI to HDMI micro cable to connect your cam link to your camera. So you're going to need that as well. And finally, you're going to need a good mic. It doesn't have to be the Shure mic, but you're going to need a good mic. Yes, and Enrique is saying a cam link is a must if you want top quality. So yes, there are so many different options that you can get. The ATEM Mini also does the same thing that a cam link does. It basically just allows you to, I can't think of the technical term. It's lost the tip of my tongue of what a cam link is. It allows you to broadcast, and it significantly increases just how it looks and the broadcast itself. So here we go. The key for lenses in the blurry background is to get a 1.4, and it will allow you to use lower light. Absolutely. If you could see how little light I have going on in here, it's amazing. Yes, and the cam link allows you to get a clean signal. So right now it's like you'll shoot dirty HDMI, which you can remove the graphics on your camera, but it gives you a very clean and clear signal. So you'll need this. So screenshot this. The cam link, the Elgato cam link is the best one. There are a lot of cheaper ones out there. Also, make sure you get good cables, and that definitely, and you have a good mic and you got a good lens. Perfect. So you just got to get the middle piece, and you were off to the races. But don't buy cheap cables. Don't do it. Okay. It's the worst thing that you could possibly do is buy cheap cables. And so definitely those are the questions. And let's see. Putting the cam link setup on my list. Yes. And then you're good to go. I can't wait till you roll out there. So I just wanted to get Shree's question, and let me see. I think that's it here. And no, that's Harry's. Such an interesting point about the importance of understanding the consequences and reactions to certain levels of authenticity. Yeah, you got to decide what's up and what you want to put out there. So there we go. There's the question I wanted. When you are first starting on a post, what are the mindset shifts to keep in mind to help you keep posting and not quit? I think it's really important to start in the why. I think for me, when I'm posting, I'm trying to help people get there. My why is I want people to own their awesome at work. I want people to show up and get recognized and rewarded for their gifts that they're leveraging at work. They may not be in their purpose, but it is their current assignment, and they do have gifts that they can share. And when people are operating in their gifts in any way, especially because we invest so much time, energy, and effort at work, and when they are doing that, they are happier. And this is that whole upgrade effect that I'm talking about, because when you're happier at work, guess what? That translates to being happier at home. So that being my why, when you're happier in your role and it's your brand is helping you excel, right? You then become much more excited. You're doing better. You're feeling great. You have your confidence because your brand matches your skills and your confidence, and people know you. They're recognizing you. They are just wanting to either reward you, refer you. There's all these R words that are really cool that happens when you build your personal brand. But it's that part. It's me wanting to help that person and recognizing that not everybody's going to work with me. The majority of people are not. But knowing that I can support and help that person step into a part of their awesome through my content, honestly, that does drive me more than anything else. So that's why I do what I do. I love what I do, and it supports the content. So the why is important, but also having structures in place and making life easier for yourself. So what I do is I am constantly tracking my ideas. I love this thing called Otter. So even in the car, sometimes I'll just, especially now with ChatGPT, if you can leverage how you capture your thoughts and your ideas. And I find now just speaking into Otter as I'm driving, literally, and then I'll take that and then I'll put it into ChatGPT to ask it to kind of like organize my thoughts based off of what I said and maintain the language style of the transcript. So it's not, putting in all this ChatGPT speak and all that stuff that doesn't help me. It just helps me work my ideas. Also leveraging these assistants to help you get to the good part faster. So back to your question around content, you got to find what works. So assistants really help. So GPT assistants, creating your own assistant, just free forming and recording and getting the transcript. It is so amazing the momentum that you can gain, and of course knowing your why. So, oh my gosh, look at my friend. Look at my friend Kevin, GMGM. Dude, why do I feel old right now? GM, good morning, good morning. Oh my gosh, you see, I haven't eaten breakfast yet. So there we go. Yes, it is all connected, but good morning, Kevin. And let me see here. I absolutely need to hear they may not be in their purpose this morning. You're so welcome, Harry. And that's the thing. You are there. I look at life as it's all ministry. And it's funny, I was just talking to Steve about that yesterday. This is all ministry. And you are still in your gifting wherever you go. And we thrive when we get to use our gifts. All right. So going deep on how to make ChatGPT work for you. Love it. Yes. No, it's awesome. I love it. And oh, yes, Hanan, you got to check out Otter. It is like my favorite tool. And yes, Kevin's laughing at me because, I was a little slow to the uptake on the GM, but I figured it out. I'm getting old. But anyways, guys, I have been on for 1 hour and 30 minutes, 34 minutes to be exact, almost 35 minutes. So I would like to thank you guys for joining me. I answered a lot of questions today. Let me go to my handy dandy design to showcase. We talked about brands in transition, right? What to do and how to bring your brand along in the game. So if you are catching the tail end, you might want to watch the beginning. We talked about how when you show up and you're building your brand at work, there are people going to be watching you and they're intimidated by your brand. They're actually hating on your brand and your branding activity. What to do? We talked about your brand and theirs meaning the company. How do you make it work together? How do you show up authentically, even if you don't particularly align with everything that your company is doing? We talked about all the different ways where building your brand at work can support you and it's a nice push-pull relationship. We addressed some stuff around, is it okay? Is it okay to do this? And of course, that last part that we just watched was all about the tech. I had to leave it to the end because I could just talk about that stuff all day. So, Heather, I thought of the word. It's called a capture card. I don't know. Like I said, guys, I didn't eat breakfast yet. It's 11:06. The intermittent fasting is working. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciated spending time with you. Of course, if you have any more questions, all you need to ask, that's it. Just ask Cher. I got your questions. You got questions. I got answers. I got the A's to your Q's. So thank you again for joining me. And I will see you on the podcast. As I mentioned before, I want to get to that screen so you can hear me clickety click in the back, that I am coming out with a podcast, and it is absolutely coming soon at the end of the month. Hopefully we'll see it. So it's called Your Brand at Work. And I'm telling you, this is the one podcast that you're going to want to listen to. So it's going to serve you as you build your brand at work for work. So definitely come out and listen. If you go to yourbrandatwork.com, you can get on the list and actually be the first to know, be the first to listen. And I said, I'll be giving away prizes to my first time listeners because I think that's fun. So in the meantime, thank you so much for joining me in this episode. I couldn't have loved it any more than I did today. It was fun. It was something completely new. But again, thank you so much for joining. And I will see you on the very next episode of Just Ask Cher or on the podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.